What does it take to build a successful business network? I'm Kate Save. The Inspired CEO starts now. Welcome to The Inspired CEO, where each episode we explore the innovative wellness practices that are driving success and longevity in the modern business world. In this episode, we dive into the rapid business growth journey of Lauren Wild, founder of Wild Women in Business. Thank you for coming in today, Lauren. And
Hi.
Tell me, how has your childhood shaped your career journey?
So, look, I think I came from an area that, you know, when we grew up, we really didn't have a lot.
Yes.
And I was speaking to somebody else about this out the back, actually, just before, about children and how resilience building at the moment as a parent, it's how do we resilience build our children when we're sort of giving them everything.
Wrap them up in cotton wool,
We
don't
do,
we?
yeah. And we want them to enjoy their life and have great experiences. And as a child, I grew up in a really tough situation where all of my childhood memories have really shaped who I am today.
Yes.
But they have been significant trauma that shaped that. So you go into like a survival mode. So I think as I grew up, I was in survival mode at all of these different stages throughout my life. And if I think back and I look at my memories, I think, okay, well, from the age of 2, my parents divorced. My mum was an alcoholic and bipolar, which back in the 90s was probably misdiagnosed. And I think it was actually borderline personality disorder, which we know a lot more about now, but back then it was just not spoken about as much. My dad passed away of cancer at the age of 11, and we had dealt with that for 5 years beforehand. Then, you know, you go through your adolescent years and you're trying to deal with puberty and changes in your body and your hormones and boyfriends and all these sorts of things and friendship circles. And then by the time I was just before my 18th birthday, my mum passed away of an overdose, and I found her body. And then by the time I was 21, you know, I'd been living with my grandparents since I was sort of 11 after Dad passed. They really became my parents.
Yes.
So imagine losing your parents twice because I've lost my dad, my mum, then I've been living with my grandparents, and my nan, she got Alzheimer's dementia. I was looking after her for 18 months as her primary carer. Then she passed away, then Granddad passed away shortly after that. So by the time I was 23, I'd pretty much lost everyone in my life that was really important and who would be your sort of role models as such.
Yeah.
So you either, I guess, going through all of that, now that I reflect back on it, when you're going through it, you're not really taking it all in, but you just go into a survival mode. Yeah. It's either you either thrive or you die. Like there's no option. I don't really ever feel like I had an option. I felt like it was just natural.
I feel like the toughest pressure built the most brilliant diamond here, because what you have done in your career and for such a young age is absolutely unbelievable. So tell us about your journey into real estate.
So I started real estate. I bought my first business at the age of 24 after losing everybody. And I knew that I would be very difficult to be an employee because my mind just works at a rapid rate. I'm very strategic because that's how I survived as I was younger. I had to be very strategically thinking. So by the time I was 24, I remember the office that I was working in, the boss at the time had missed a meeting with a bank manager.
Yes.
And I never really understood. I'd sort of been a sales assistant and, you know, in a GM sort of role and setting up systems and processes, but I never really understood a rent roll and the value of a rent roll.
Yes.
And this bank manager was sitting there, and I said to him, why do people do rent rolls? Like, what's the point in that? I just couldn't understand it. And it seemed like a big headache. And he said, well, a rental roll, the annualised income from a tenant that pays rent, we receive that rent, we pass it on to the landlord, but we take a fee of that rent. So it's basically like a subscription-based model almost. That annualised income is worth 3 times the value. And I was like, that kind of makes a bit of sense. Okay. So then I started to do the math and I thought, well, why don't we just build a rent roll? That sounds like a good idea. And at the time we didn't have a rent roll. And I had told the business owner, I said, well, I'm going to grow it to 100 by Christmas, and then we're gonna, and that was June, and I said, well, we're gonna, use that to buy you out, because he didn't really want to be in the business anymore. Yes. He was lovely, but just didn't really want to be there anymore, and he was traveling far to be there. And he said, all right, do it. So did it. And then bought him out. And then we grew very, very quickly because we managed to get a deal with another real estate company who the business owners there were about to retire, and we bought their business and brought them all in together. So yeah, we had like rapid growth at that point.
So you went from 900,000 to 2.5 million in a matter of just a few years. Is that right?
Yeah. That was annualized income, and then we grew from there again. But I have to say, like, whilst that was good, and that was when you're in it, you probably don't realize that you're doing well and what's happening. But then we started to, once the deal sort of came apart with, you know, the two directors that we brought on, they were on commission only for 2 years, and then all of a sudden they retired, and we had other people retire. My biggest downfall in business, biggest downfall was not recruiting.
Oh, right. Getting the right people.
We were just in it.
Yes.
And we didn't focus enough on recruitment and building enough relationships with other agents to bring them on board. We just thought we were bulletproof at that point, and we weren't.
Well, you were very lucky. Years later now, you've actually had a very successful exit. How does that feel? Did you celebrate? What does that, how does that change things for you?
Yeah, look, I managed to now just upgrade my family home, as you know. So I am the main income driver of my family. And it's funny because it's an interesting concept, but my husband, when I met him, he did always say to me, honey, I will do what I love and I'll enjoy doing what I do, but I'm never going to be the main income driver. So if you want all the flashy thing, you want this and you want that, that's not going to be me. And I was like, I respect that. That's fine. No worries. I'll work hard.
People's wish list often, isn't it?
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. Well done.
So yeah, it has changed our lives significantly. But now, as you know, you get to a certain point and then you want to keep pushing forward and keep pushing forward. So there's always a new horizon and a new goal.
There's always a new business on your mind.
Always.
I've heard of them, so I'm very excited to see what's next. And how do you balance your business life and now that you have 2 children as well, and a husband too? Yeah.
I'm very efficient. This is the one thing. I can multitask and be so efficient at things because I think strategically and think ahead. I'm always thinking of the next thing. So I'm always able to balance really well because I can maintain and manage my time very well. So people think I'm really busy, and I'm like, I'm not that busy. I'm actually okay. I've got I can do that.
Skill. And that is why you've chosen such a unique sport and way to stay fit. So tell people about your hobby.
So look, I do go to the gym. I do enjoy rock climbing as well. I play netball. That is more of a team sport, but on an individual basis, like being able to just go in and climb up something and just do it on your own.
Yeah, you were telling me about really the vertical climbs and even tipping back and
it's so fun. It is really an interesting exercise to do because you have to strategically think about how you're going to get up something. And I'm not very good, like I'm not that great, but I'm probably better than the average person. You know what I mean?
Better enough that you did a big tournament or an event just a weekend ago.
The Spartan race. No, that was 10 kilometres, 25 obstacles. I'm not running fit, I have to admit, but I am strong. So I knew I could catch people on the challenges.
Is this correct?
Yeah, in my age group, 30 to 34.
Amazing.
So no, that was pretty good. I was actually pretty proud of myself for doing that.
So your mental toughness to get through something like that, not being the fastest, you couldn't just run and outrun them. You actually had to use your muscles and your grit
to get over the obstacles and to do the obstacles. And that was I enjoy that mental toughness. I really do. I always have.
And being so busy, even though you think you're not, how do you unwind, or when do you unwind? What is time for you?
I have to go to the gym in the morning. So I'm a morning person. 6 a.m. If I can't do a 6, I have to do a 5. Like I have to be at the gym. If I don't, especially after a couple of days, I notice that I get very mentally foggy. And you're the health person, so you can tell me why.
So true.
I just do, and I get more irritable quicker. I know that I have to be able to just go to the gym, even just to socialise. Even the social aspect. It's not about going there every single morning training and doing the hardest run or exercise. It's about the actual social environment that it creates, because it gets your brain working, it gets you talking, it gets you started for the day.
And you're off your phone, you're off your computer.
Absolutely.
Personal space. But most importantly, what you said about brain health is actually true. So when you're exercising, you actually secrete something called BDNF, which helps you grow new brain cells. That's why you feel foggy without it, because you've become reliant on turning over these brain cells. But also, it's your dopamine, it's your pleasure, it's that rush that you're getting that is exciting, and it inspires you to push as hard as you do every day.
It also helps me to stop thinking, because I get to go to the gym, and it's not a gym where you rock up and you have to create your own exercises. I get told what to do every single day, and I love that. I'm like, just tell me what I need to do so I don't have to think. And even as they're talking, sometimes I can feel my mind wandering, and I have to pull myself back and get my attention on them. And I find that really helpful, because it allows me to just get out of my own space and out of my own head for a little bit.
And I love that you've never ever played the victim. You never have used your past trauma, your childhood experiences, or excuses, even with having children and having multiple businesses and lots going on, for not doing exercise, not being healthy, or not achieving.
No, and I can't understand why you wouldn't. One thing about me is I actually put myself first and my own mental health first, because when you grow up in a certain environment and you reflect on that environment, how I think is, just wouldn't you want the opposite? Like, wouldn't you want to be the best version of yourself, for your family, to be able to create what you couldn't create? I remember growing up and going to other people's houses, and I was like, why don't I have this? Why don't my parents communicate like this? And why doesn't my mum communicate like this with me? And why don't, you know, when you grow up in a very neglectful environment, you have to work out very quickly who you want to be and who you are. And I know very much who I am and who I'm not. And I know what I can and can't do. And I'm okay with that. So I'm not trying to be the best at absolutely everything, or even be the best at exercise or this or that, but I just know that it helps me mentally and physically, that helps me to be a better person just in general.
And that's incredible to see that your wellness and your care for yourself is innate to you. You've role modelled that to your two beautiful children, and thank you for sharing your story today, and I hope other people are inspired.
Thank you.
So this is Ticker, and we will be right back.
You're watching Ticker. We'll have more in just a few minutes.